This is the only video you need to watch if you want to purchase a Porsche Boxster 981. I will namely show you what a fair purchasing price is, so you can get the best deal out there, how much the car will depreciate per year and per 1000 miles driven, and how much it will be worth 1 year from now. So let's get started. Now, if you are a regular viewer of the channel, you know that I frequently ask you to comment for which car you would like to see a market analysis. And this video is based on such a comment, and it was requested by Made in Machines. Hello Made in Machines. This video is for you. Now normally, when someone requests an individual analysis, I tailor the analysis to the specific desires of that person. That means that besides the metrics you see on the channel, I provide more detailed statistics for the car which is being analyzed, pinpoint individual cars which offer great value for money and meet the set requirements such as spec, location and maintenance history. Finally, I also include then a detailed value forecast for that specific car. Now for this video I don't have any specific information about the car Made in Machines is looking for. I will therefore focus on the more general market metrics which you also know from my other videos. Now on the upside, this also means that the video will be relevant for a much larger audience, as we are going to analyze the average mileage points, the depreciation per year and per 1000 miles driven, the forecasted values and the price points which offer good value for money by using state-of-the-art machine learning algorithms. At the end of the video I will then conclude and show you which Porsche Boxster model is the best buy from a depreciation perspective and for which price. Furthermore, we will consider the whole market, but we will also split this market between the engine type and the transmission type. So we will have a look to the difference between the S models, the standard models, the automatic models and the manual models. Now that means that this video will be a little bit longer than normal, but in return you will get a very thorough and detailed analysis. I therefore suggest that you take a cup of coffee or tea if you're that kind of person, and sit back and enjoy the analysis. Let's dive into the data. Oh, and one more final thing before we continue. Please smash that like button if you enjoy the analysis, because it really helps to support the channel if you do so. We will start by having a look to the average price points, and the three histograms over here are going to help us with that. In the top you see the full market, below that you see the split between the engine types, and at the bottom you see the split between the transmission types. All of these histograms have, by the way, price on the horizontal axis and the number of cars available for that given price point on the vertical axis. If we start then by having a look to the full market, we can see that there are 104 cars for sale and that these have an average price point of £30,500. And this average price point is, by the way, each time indicated by the dashed line. We can also see that there's quite a large price difference in the market, as prices start at £22,500 and stretch then up to £42,500. If we move then one histogram down, we can see the market split by engine type, and in green we have now the S version and in orange the standard version. We can see that the standard version is a little bit more popular than the S version, as there are 65 cars for sale versus 39 for the S version. Furthermore, we can see that the S versions in general are sold for a premium of £4,000. The average price point of the standard version is namely £29,000, whereas the average price point of the S version is £33,000. Moving on then to the histogram at the bottom, where we have the market split by transmission type, we can see that the automatic, so the cars with the PDK box, are way more popular than the cars with a manual transmission. We can see namely that there are 76 cars for sale with an automatic transmission and only 26 with a manual transmission. Now for many of the older cars which I have analyzed, you can see that if the cars have a manual box and are relatively speaking quite rare, which is the case here, that they are actually sold for a premium over the automatic cars. That is however clearly not the case here, as the average price point for the manuals is actually a little bit lower than the average price point for the automatic cars. And a good explanation for this is of course that the new PDK boxes are so good that many people actually prefer them over the manual ones. So we got now quite a good understanding of the price distributions in the market, but we also need to have a good understanding of the mileage distributions. I therefore made the same histograms but then with mileage on the horizontal axis instead of price, and those are now popping up on your screen. We have again the full market in blue at the top, and we can see that the average Porsche Boxster has driven 39,000 miles. You can however also find cars which have 10,000 miles driven and cars which have almost 90,000 miles driven. Now the two histograms at the bottom show again the split between the engine type and the transmission type. If we have a look to those then, we can see that generally speaking, the S cars have a higher mileage than the non-S cars. The same can be said when we look to the split between transmission type, as we can see that the automatic cars have a slightly higher mileage in general than the manual cars. Now after all of those histograms, we have quite a good understanding of how the market looks, so let's move on to the next step, which is the depreciation per year. And this graph over here is going to help us with that. You can see that we have model year now on the horizontal axis and price on the vertical axis. Each of the dots represent a car for sale in today's market, and the blue solid line going through the graph shows the depreciation curve. If we pop up the graph then on the screen, we can see that there are also black axes in the graph, and these axes show the average price point for that given model year. And then finally, you see that there's a shaded area surrounding the depreciation curve, and this shaded area shows the forecasted value range with a probability of 75%. If we have a look into the data and the depreciation curve in particular, we can see that the average depreciation per year for a Porsche Boxster 981 is £1,625. Now of course, you can see that the depreciation per year is still higher for the newer cars than it is for the older cars. In fact, the average depreciation per year is decreasing on average with £500 per year. And this leaves us, for example, with an average depreciation per year of €1,243 for cars of model year 2013. If we want to have then a look into the future, we can use the forecasted value range to figure out what the value would be 1 year from now. If we zoom in then on the shaded area, we can see that there's a 75% certainty that the average value of a Porsche Boxster will be between £25,500 and £31,100 1 year from now. And for those people who are viewing this and are a little bit a nerd like me, notice how this approach is far superior to just using the current depreciation curve and extrapolating that into the future. That approach namely doesn't account for any uncertainty in the current estimation of the depreciation curve. Now let's split this depreciation curve also by the engine type and the transmission type to see if we can find any interesting differences. And we start with the engine type. The graph popping up now on your screen shows the depreciation curve for the S models in orange and the standard models in blue. And this reveals a few interesting insights. First of all, we can see that on average the depreciation per year is a lot higher for the S model than for the standard model. The S model is namely depreciating with a rate of £2,600 per year, whereas the standard model is depreciating with a rate of £1,400 per year. A closer inspection of the curves however shows us that this doesn't tell the full story. We can see namely that the depreciation curve of the S model in orange shows a strong bottoming pattern. If we for example have a look between the model years 2015 and 2014, we can see that the S is depreciating at a rate of £4,400 per year, whereas the standard car is depreciating only at a rate of £2,000 per year. Hence, for the first year there's a difference of roughly £2,300 in terms of depreciation per year. If we however have a look to the depreciation per year between the model years from 2013 and 2012, then we can see that the difference is a lot smaller, as the S cars are namely depreciating at a rate of £1,900 per year, and the standard cars are depreciating at a rate of £1,600 per year. Hence, for the older model years the depreciation per year is almost the same for the S and the standard cars. You can see however that there's quite a large shaded area, which indicates that there's relatively speaking a lot of uncertainty in the forecast. Nevertheless, I think that the support from the data is strong enough to say that it's quite likely that the S will decrease less in the future than the standard car. So how will this then turn out for the difference between the manual and automatic cars? Let's also have a look to that. In the graph popping up now on your screen, you can see that the automatic car is displayed in orange and the manual is displayed in blue. And also here, on average, there's quite a large difference between the two. Now the automatic cars are depreciating on average £1,400 per year, whereas the manual cars are depreciating £2,700 per year. You can however also see here that the depreciation per year is by far the highest in the first years for the manuals and then decreases to a rate which is more or less in line with the automatic cars. I however think that this strong drop in prices for the manual cars is a little bit strange. The difference in terms of depreciation per year in the first year between the S and the standard car could namely easily be explained by the difference in price point between the S and the standard car. And that argument of course doesn't hold here, because the prices are more or less the same for the automatic and the manual cars. So that leaves us with two possible explanations. Number one, the demand for manual cars is simply lower, pushing down the prices of manual cars faster. And this argument could actually be supported by the few manual cars which were for sale. There were only 26 cars for sale. Then argument number two, it could also be just pure chance that the depreciation curve looks like this because we have so few observations for the manual cars. And this is something which is supported by the widening of the shaded area at several points along the depreciation curve. This namely shows that there's a larger uncertainty in the depreciation curve. Overall, however, I think that both of the arguments have some merit. The data shows that manual cars are slightly less desired and that they could therefore depreciate faster in the first years. Potentially, however, this effect can be exaggerated by the few data points we have for the manual cars. Since we are now familiar with the first and foremost aspects which determines the price of a car, the model year, it's time to move on to the next aspects, which is the mileage of the car. And therefore we are going to have a look to the depreciation per 1000 miles driven. We first have a look again to the full market and then split this between the engine type and the transmission type. And we will go, by the way, a little bit quicker to this part than we did for the depreciation per year. The graph which is popping up now on your screen shows the depreciation curve for the depreciation per 1000 miles driven. And you can see that we have now miles on the horizontal axis and price on the vertical axis. If we investigate then the blue depreciation curve, we can see that the average depreciation per 1000 miles driven is 108 pounds. And in isolation, this number actually doesn't mean so much, but when you start to compare it to other cars, then you can see that it's really low. The Boxster is namely depreciating a lot less per 1000 miles driven than, for example, a Mercedes-Benz A45 AMG or a BMW 1M. And these are all cars which you potentially could buy in the same price range. If you're, by the way, interested in a BMW 1M, then I strongly suggest that you check out my previous video in which I do a full depreciation analysis for that car. And the link to that video will be popping up above here. Alright, back to the Boxster now, and let's have a look to the split between engine type. That is shown on the graph popping up now on your screen. We have the S version in orange and the standard version in blue. And you can see that just as with the depreciation per year, there's quite a significant difference between the engine types. Also here, the depreciation rate of the S is a lot higher with 170 pounds per 1000 miles driven than it is for the standard car, which is 110 pounds per 1000 miles driven. And this difference of course could be explained by the higher purchasing price of an S car than a standard car. Let's move on then to the last depreciation type, which is the split between the transmission type for the depreciation per 1000 miles driven. You can see that we have the manual cars in blue now and the automatic cars in orange. Looking then to the rate of the depreciation, we can see that the manual cars are depreciating more than the automatic cars. The manual cars are depreciating at a rate of 170 pounds per 1000 miles driven, whereas the automatic cars are depreciating at a rate of 100 pounds per 1000 miles driven. But also here, please be aware that we have, relatively speaking, few observations for the manuals, so we should be a little bit tentative in drawing conclusions from that depreciation curve. Alright, so you've seen now all of the key statistics for the Porsche Boxster 981 market. But which model is the best buy from a depreciation perspective? What are the safe purchasing prices? And how can you find an individual car which offers the best value for money? That is exactly what I'm going to show you in the remainder of this video. If you, by the way, made it so far into the video, I hope you are enjoying the analysis. If so, make sure you smash that like button and you subscribe and click the notification bell so you get notified when the next analysis goes live. Let's find out now what good price levels are to buy at. And to find those levels we need to consider of course the price, the mileage and the model year. Now all three of those variables are displayed in the 3D plot which is popping up now on your screen. You can see that we have model year, price and mileage. Now to find the price point where it is good to buy, I use a state-of-the-art machine learning algorithm which shows if a car follows the normal market dynamics. That therefore means that if the car doesn't follow the normal market dynamics for the market of the Porsche Boxster, it's either overpriced or underpriced. And if you are a regular viewer, you're most likely familiar with this approach. Now when I was executing this analysis, I actually ran into some problems because something very special is going on with the market of the Porsche Boxster 981. You can see namely by having a look to the 3D plot that there's no direction in the market. The plot basically just looks like one big round cloud. And this lack of direction is confirmed by the correlation plot, which shows that the correlations between model year and price and mileage and price are way below average at 0.4. And this is very different from other cars where values typically range from 0.6 to 0.9. And to put this in a little bit more practical terms, it means that the price of a Porsche Boxster doesn't move so much with changes in the mileage and the model year. Furthermore, because there's so little movement in the market, it also means that I drastically had to increase the sensitivity level of the machine learning algorithm to find cars which follow the normal market dynamic. And those cars you can see in the 3D plot popping up now on your screen. You can see that we have again price, the model year and the mileage, but that the cars are now colored. And the darker the color of the bubble, the more likely it is that that car follows the normal market behavior for a Porsche Boxster. That of course also means the other way around, that the lighter the color, the higher the risk that the car falls outside the normal market dynamics and that the car is either overpriced or underpriced. Therefore, we can say that the cars in dark green have a fair purchasing price and represent a relatively safe price to buy at. Now in practice this means that these cars don't offer extremely good deals because they follow the normal market dynamics, but it also means that you won't be overpaying here. If we have a look then to the price and the mileage range which belongs to these cars which follow the market dynamics, we can see that the price needs to be between 25 and 35,000 pounds, while the mileage of the car needs to be below 40,000 miles. So in practice, this means that if you search for a car between these two ranges, you most likely find a car which is priced fairly. And with considering this information, You're so close to finding your perfect Porsche Boxster, there's only one step to go, and that is the relative value analysis. You namely need to find a car inside those ranges which offers the best value for money. And that means in this case the car with the lowest price for the newest model year with the lowest mileage. And to do that, you could make a graph where you are considering both model year, price and the mileage, and that is shown in the graph popping up now on your screen. We have now model year on the horizontal axis and price on the vertical axis, and each of the bubbles represents again a car for sale. The bubbles are however now sized according to how many miles that car has driven. Furthermore, I also differentiated again here between the S models and the standard models. The S is represented in orange and the standard in blue. Now in this graph you would expect to see for each model year that as the size of the bubble increases, so the more miles the car has driven, the lower the price for that model year. After all, generally speaking, if we have two of the same cars with different mileage, then the one which has the highest mileage should be priced the lowest. You can therefore find cars which offer good value for money by looking for small bubbles which are priced low, meaning that the cars have low mileage and a low price. An example of those cars for the Porsche Boxster market you can find over here and over here. Alright, let's use now all of the information which we just saw to conclude and figure out which Porsche Boxster would be the best buy from a depreciation perspective. If it were my own money, I would be going for a Boxster S of an older model year, so model year 2013 or model year 2012. And I have the following reasons for this. Point number 1, we saw that for the older model years, the depreciation per year for the S cars is almost the same as the depreciation per year for the standard cars. Moreover, the forecast showed that the future depreciation will be the same or perhaps even a little bit less for the S model. Number 2, the depreciation per 1000 miles driven is indeed a little bit higher for the S model than it is for the standard model. However, this advantage is only marginal when you compare it to the advantage you have in terms of depreciation per year. And then finally point number 3, for which I also had to put the light on as you can see. I would be looking to buy a car between 25 and 35,000 pounds with less than 40,000 miles driven. We saw namely that these are the cars which offer a fair purchasing price. And with point number 3 we arrived at the end of this analysis. The analysis was a lot longer than normally, but I hope you got some good insights from it and that it will help you in your search for a Porsche Boxster. Now as always, you can comment down below with a car for which you would like to see an analysis. You can also write me an email if you would like to have a personalized analysis, and my email address is included in the description below. Now in the meantime, you might be interested in the depreciation analysis for the Porsche Cayman or the Alfa Romeo 4C, and for those cars you can find the analysis over here and over here. Remember to give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it and to subscribe. Thank you for watching, see you next time.